All right, we'd like to welcome Collin Morikawa to the Media Center at the 2024 Fedex St. Jude Championship. Collin, welcome. You're entering the week ranked number 4 in the FedEx Cup standings. Can you just open with some thoughts about being back in Memphis for the first leg of the playoffs?
Yeah, I love it. Obviously, you kind of get to this week, and the past couple of years, you look at the season and you realize, okay, you got to have a really good first week, and you got to have a good second week, and knowing where I'm at, and I'll be at the Tour Championship. I think it's just kind of leading up. How do I play the best, not only this week, but how do I really prepare for 3 weeks from now and try and win it all. But yeah.
Do you mind touching on your regular season? You've had 7 top 10s, a pretty great season so far, but maybe just some recap and goals going into Tour Champ.
It's been a lot better than the past couple of years, but I think when I look back at seasons and I look back at whether I've succeeded in my goals, it obviously comes down to wins, and right now I've got 0. It's been frustrating in that sense. It's been great knowing that I've been able to give myself chances. I've been in a lot of kind of final pairings, or at least the last few groups, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to win, and you want to be able to close out tournaments, and that's what not only people remember, but that's what you remember. So I've got I've got 3 more weeks to kind of close off, hopefully 3 wins, and see how everything, then I can look back and say, it's been a decent season.
Right. Well, before we turn it over to questions, we have your bag next to you. This isn't your usual bag. Can you share a little bit about this custom bag that TaylorMade provided for you for the playoffs?
Yeah, really special bag. Really cool. I think, obviously FedEx kind of did a little collab with TaylorMade, one of my sponsors, and created this bag special for the playoffs. And it's obviously very meaningful, not only how it's built. I mean, it's built with you have recycled gloves on the side, recycled materials. Someone said there's something, a part of a FedEx truck in it. But I think what this represents really is just an accumulation of the entire season. I think, what's so special about this bag in the next 3 weeks that I'm going to be using it is that FedEx is going to be donating $1,000 per birdie I make for the playoffs. And that's very, very special. I think it ties in. They're going to be donating to St. Jude, obviously the St. Jude Championship this week. So just a lot of special ties going in.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to questions. If you can raise your hand, we'll get you a microphone. We can start right over here on the left.
Collin, this morning you got to go out in the program with Memphis basketball coach Penny Hardway. Memphis Penny is an avid golfer. What was your assessment of Penny's golf skills, and what were some tips and tricks that you gave him, that could boost his game a little bit?
He's really good. He's actually really, really good. I think he had a handicap of 2 today. He made some legit, I think he made 2 actual birdies, normal birdies without his handicap. He was striping it. He's such a tall guy, and that's how obviously basketball players are. And he said he's had, I think, 6 knee surgeries. So he asked me on 18 just something that he could work on, just about rotation and getting around the corner kind of a little bit better. He hit a little bit, some balls out to the right, but I mean, it was impressive. I didn't know what to expect, and sometimes you see a 2 handicap and they're not a 2. But I actually believe in. He's a great player, and just a great guy to hang out with for 9 holes today.
Go ahead.
Collin, one more question on Penny. You were pretty young, I think, when Penny was in his prime playing basketball. Do you think you have a good sense of how good of just a basketball player Penny was, or are you going to have to look up the YouTube highlights after this?
I have a decent sense, but I'm definitely going to have to go watch a bunch of highlights later today. What's cool about what golf has given us is I've been able to meet a bunch of athletes, and sometimes you forget how good they are and how amazing they are at what they do, that when you get to talk to them and you hang out with them, it's like, oh, they're just kind of normal guys. But then when you see what they're able to do on the court or the field or wherever it is, it kind of puts you back, and you're like, man, this person I just met is very, very special. And we got to talk a little bit about his coaching from Memphis and what he's excited for this year. And it's cool when you see them obviously past their careers and giving back and doing what they love. Obviously still basketball, but coaching other people.
Any other questions from the group? Doug Ferguson?
Brace yourself.
Hi, Doug.
In a weird kind of way, as good and consistent season as you've had, you technically, this is very hypothetical and I apologize in advance, but you technically could go into Eastlake in the number 2 seed if you had a couple of runner-up finishes and still not win Eastlake and win the FedEx Cup. Would you be okay with that?
Still not win East Lake. Oh, win East Lake and win the FedEx, and not win the FedEx Cup.
Right.
Doug, I just want to win tournaments, and I think it takes care of itself. I mean, you obviously know where you're slotted out by the time you start the Tour Championship. I mean, last year I started at whatever, 1 under, even par, and I think by the first day I was like 2 back. That plays into kind of how the week's going to go, and depending where you start, you have to make up more ground. But sometimes you just got to go out and just win and see if it plays out, and hopefully you're close enough.
But even in your position, which is 4, it still comes down to East Lake. This whole kind of postseason. Are you good with that?
Oh, you're asking about like the format?
Yeah.
I've gone back and forth about it. I think the simple answer is yes. I think with any sport, playoffs are playoffs, and sometimes the best teams, a lot of the times, the best teams don't win. What's crazy about our sport is that there's so much fluctuation and there's so much variabilities that you don't know how someone's going to play. The best player in the world could have a bad week, and it's like, man, that week mattered more than others, right? We have 4 majors, you have the playoffs, you have the players. Those weeks matter more, but sometimes people have bad weeks. So that's kind of what our playoffs are. I don't think there's a perfect system. I think we've got it down to guys can complain, oh, this, that. If you are the best and you want to show up, you have to show up, especially at the Tour Championship, right? And that's just how things work. I mean, there's a lot on the line. But that's what's so tough about our sport is like, it's not like you're just better than every single person every single week. Anyone any of these 70 guys this week could come out and win. And that's what's great about our sport, but that's what makes it tough to crown a title.
I know you're not satisfied with your year to date, but is there any upside you see to it? Is there anything that makes you happy about it?
There's a lot of upside. I mean, there's still a lot of positives, and there's a lot of growth that has happened, and I still believe, I still haven't felt like I've had that week where I'm like, man, I played the best I could, and I got beat, and that's great. There's still a lot of positives, though. I mean, if I look at where I was in kind of February, March, where there's a lot of searching going on, there's a lot of positives, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to close the tournament and win, and that's my focus right now.
Thank you. We'll go back left and then to Sean Martin up here. Go ahead.
Collin, it's been a year since, the tragedy that happened in Lahaina, and you were back here in Memphis, and you donated $1,000 for every birdie that you made. I just want to know what it's been like over the last 12 months for you in that community. Have you been able to go back and support, and how have they responded in your eyes?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. Look, it was very eerie going, at the beginning of the year, just kind of driving by, knowing that that's where my dad grew up and would go there through the summers and spend his times. That's where we grew up, kind of taking family vacations. And when we were there in January, I honestly couldn't believe it. And I've seen some videos recently, I've seen some photos, and it still is just, slowly being built up. And it sucks that many people have lost their homes. I mean, a year ago, we raised a lot of money, and we did a lot of good things for that community, and we continue to do so. And that's, it's like a second home for me, right? And I think this year with St. Jude and Fedex doing this, whether it's just this timing of the year or whatever it is, I want to raise as much money as possible. So, my wife's going to be running the New York Marathon, and we're going to be trying to raise as much money as we can for St. Jude as well. That's her charity. That's her kind of charity beneficiary for that marathon later in November. So I think everything that's piling on, it's all coming together, whether it's FedEx and TaylorMade, St. Jude, and ourselves and my family. We're going to be doing as much as we can throughout these playoffs in the next couple months to help out some great kids.
Thank you. Sean?
Did you put any thought into running with her?
Absolutely not. No, I need to go buy a bike so I can ride next to her as she runs 20 miles a day.
You talked at Paris about you've lacked like that hot streak in a tournament to win. Can you control those streaks?
Seems like some guys have in the past history of golf. No, look, you can obviously raise the bar of your consistency. So obviously a guy like Scotty, his consistency is very, very high. So every day I'm trying to raise that bar. Can you control the hot streaks? I don't think you can control the hot streaks. I don't know if anyone can, but you can raise your bar and raise it as high as possible to when you are playing average, you're up there in the top 5 and you're contending, right? So I've raised that bar over the past few years to a lot better level. But sometimes you need that hot streak to go out and win a golf tournament. And honestly, when I look back at some of my wins, like, things were just clicking. And hopefully it starts tomorrow and it ends September 1st.
And going back to Rick, what's been the biggest benefit there to your game?
Just having someone to talk through things. We've learned and we've worked on, the kind of things we did really well on before, but we've also learned from our mistakes that, the reason why I ended it for a short period of time. But we're not taking anything for granted. We're not trying to dive too deep into things. Sometimes you got to dumb it down and you got to make things simple and just understand what worked and what didn't. The problem is like, I'm a perfectionist and I want to make things so perfect that you sometimes go down these paths that don't work out, and it brings you away from keeping that consistency and that level to where you want it. So, there's obviously things to nitpick every single week, but you got to remember where that whole level of your game is and say, okay, is that good enough to win? It is good enough to win. I just got to sharpen up the mind sometimes a little bit better.
Thank you. We'll go back left here.
Collin, it looks like it might feel a little bit like deja vu here. It rained a little bit last year on the Pro-Am days, and then the heat really picks up into the weekend. For you, I wonder if you're kind of anticipating the real heat this weekend, and how do you as golfers prepare for that when you have had a cool couple of days on the practice course?
Yeah, I got in yesterday. I live in Vegas, so the past kind of week it's been 110 degrees. A little different with the humidity out here, but honestly, it hasn't felt that bad, and you just got to accept it. I mean, you're not going to do anything about it. You just got to know how your body's going to react. You got to make sure you fuel up. A couple years ago, my caddy almost went down. Like, he was feeling it. So you just got to do the right steps to make sure, when you're out there, you're fueling correctly, so you don't, feel a little bit more tired than you're used to just because of the heat. But Vegas has helped me a lot, just kind of knowing how bad it's going to be out here.
Thank you. Allie?
You had a special caddy this morning, Luis, a St. Jude patient. He just got done with treatment. How much does that put it into perspective for you going into round 1 tomorrow?
Perspective's such a big thing. When you meet a kid like Luis and he's just so happy to be there and to talk. I mean, he talked about the Olympics. He talked about the chocolate muffin that I didn't eat in the village. The kid was listing off like every Marvel character, how much he loves Deadpool. Honestly, I don't even know if he's played golf, and he hit my putt and he's like, oh, sorry, I hit it too hard. I was like, buddy, it's your first shot you've ever hit. There's an enjoyment. And enjoyment might not be the right word, but there's just an appreciation for where he is and just having fun. And I think we can all bring that kind of childlike mentality to a lot of things we do. And I think we sometimes focus in too much on the small details. And out there, he was just having fun. And that is that kind of child mentality. And I want to keep that because, I can get hard on myself. I can get hard around my team because, yes, I do have a goal to win. But when I've won, I've had a lot of fun. And I haven't had fun just because I'm playing well. It's just that's my nature. So seeing that kind of perspective from Luis this morning allows me just to stay grounded within myself and just go out there and be who I am.
There's no further questions. That's a perfect place to end. Thank you for your time, Collin. Good luck this week.